Okay, now that we have went through variables and hopefully you have a better understanding of what's a function scope and what's a block scope, let us look at a few inbuilt functions that allow us to change the values of variables and create some very cool effects and stuff with it. So let me just declare and initialize a variable in here, call that y, and then let me make a canvas. Let me set the background to completely white. Stop logging stuff in here. Okay. Okay, so maybe let's start with drawing our circle in here. Mouse X and Y. So what happens in here right now is that the circle, it only gets drawn at the location 0. And if I want to, okay, maybe make my background black actually. And what I can do is, throughout this draw function, I can start editing out this variable's value to make the circle slowly fall down with each iteration. And that is by just making it by increasing by 1. So now what's happening is that as draw gets drawn 60 frames per second, this y is increasing, and that's why the circle is going downwards, and eventually it is leaving out my frame, never to be found again. And then I have to restart it. Okay, so I actually want to go here about what was happening in here. So we have this y function, y variable, and whenever the draw function gets run, with each iteration, y grows larger and larger, so it gets incremented. And this notation, y equals y plus 1, it's a bit annoying to write. And there's a shortcut for it, which is plus plus. Whoops. Plus plus. And it's basically the same thing as incrementing y by 1. And you can also decrease it if you want to decrease your y. Maybe, I don't know my window height, but maybe like, let's make it like 700. Then I can decrease it by 1, which is basically same as y equals y minus 1. So now my y is going upwards as it's getting decreased 1 by 1. And these variable operations, they're quite nice to use, and there are also other shortcuts that you can have a refresher on. For instance, like if I want to double the y, I can do y times 2. Okay, maybe this time I make it 1. It's gonna go so fast, but let's go. Yep. So you can see that now with each iteration of draw, y gets doubled. I can halve the y by using the divide, and now it gets halved, and eventually like it reaches to 0. That's why like they all are accumulated back up in here. These are, you know, just like cool things to play around, and like knowing that like it's easier for us to use these math notations than writing everything down. I would expect you to use these just to, you know, it's kind of a demonstration of your ease of code, ease with math, and I think it's a good practice for us to remember how to use these ones. Okay, let me just go back to y plus plus, increment my y 1 by 1, set it to 0, and let's check it. Check what else can we do. Another thing we can do is we can use the random function to edit out the values of the variables. So let me declare another one called size, and I will just declare it, but I will initialize it in here. And let's make size a random value between maybe 10 to 30. So what is going to be happening is that this random function, it gives some random number between 10 to 30, and then I'm just going to use it for the size of the circle. So when I run it, with each iteration I'm getting a different size, and it's creating a very different effect. Yeah, pretty cool, something new to try out. And then another function that we can use to edit out the values of variables is called map. And map function, it's not as intuitive as random, unfortunately, but let me just illustrate it with using color. Okay, so let me have another variable called red. I'll just make it R and let G. Okay. So let's make the value of R map mouse, oops, mouse X, which goes from 0 to width to 200, 0 to 255. So let me talk about the map. What map does is basically it takes the value of a variable which you already have it somewhere existing, and you basically need to know the minimum and maximum possible value of that variable. So for my mouse X, I know that the lowest number it can get is 0, which is, my my canvas's upper left corner. That's the lowest possible value it can get. And the highest one is width, the width of my canvas, and that is the possible range of mouse X. But I want to map it to a color value, and I know that for RGB color values, the minimum is 0 and the maximum is 255. So what this map function does is, oops, I hope it didn't hurt your ears. So what the map function does is it takes out the mouse X's value, which is somewhere along these two numbers, and then puts it into the same ratio within the scale of that and gives you a very new number. Maybe let's just log it out to see it better before I start using it. So what's happening is, as my X is at 0, it becomes 0, and it increases, eventually reaches 255 or somewhere along there. And that's what it does basically. It takes my value of mouse X and limits it between 0 and 255. And why am I talking about this function? Because it's a very cool method for you to map your coordinates into colors or map some information into a different information. So let me just get my green. Maybe let's make it blue. I prefer this blue. Just gives better results in my mind. Okay, Y. I'll just copy it. It's gonna be faster. And then let's make the fill of this to R G B. Hope it works now. Yeah. So now you're able to see that given the location of my mouse X and Y, I'm getting different colors, and I'm able to map this value into basically yeah, I'm different getting colors because I'm mapping out the values of my coordinates into the fill. And so yeah, this is the map function and random function. Yeah, I'll just call it now.